Hello, and welcome to the YouTube reading of the short story A Song for Fereydun by James Murray. My name is Darius, and this is my country's story. I was born in a small mountain village, but like so many others, I moved to Fereydun's capital in search of a better life. My country has a long and proud history. I am named after one of the world's most famous kings. Even so, in my father and grandfather's time, no one else in the world seemed to care about our country. All of that changed in that one tiny instant when explorers from a far-off empire discovered a mineral called naft buried deep within our mountains. The explorers were from an island empire called Albion, and they went from caring nothing about our land and homes to caring only how much naft they could dig out of the ground. They informed the rest of the world that our country belonged to them, and they spent the next decades taking everything from us. My father still lived in his house in the mountains. I had been born there, as had he and his father before him. Then the men of Albion found naft buried beneath his land, and men with guns went to his house and told him the house was no longer his. I took my father into my own home, and we appealed to our king, asking him to stand up for the rights of his people. He did nothing. No, that is not right. Our king took a share of the money earned from what was being dug out of our land, and he began to pass new laws, trying to make our country just like the one that was stealing from us. They even passed a law saying men had to wear hats just like the hats worn by the men of Albion. Our country grew, and we found new leaders. We democratically elected a new leader named Prime Minister Mossadegh, and he began to make life better for everyone. He created new jobs, he fought for the rights and equality of everyone, and he told Albion that it could no longer take our naft without paying for it. Albion refused to listen, so Mossadegh went to the International Court of Justice and pleaded our case. We won. Our future seemed bright, but Albion did not give up so easily. They were the allies of another great nation called Allegheny, one of the world's most powerful countries. They went to Allegheny and promised that they would share the money made from stealing our naft in exchange for helping them to keep control of it. Operation Ajax was launched on August 19th, 1953. Spies beyond counting snuck into our country from Albion and Allegheny. They threatened innocent people. They bribed people they could corrupt. They gave guns to the king and his soldiers. Backed by his foreign friends, the king locked Dr. Mossadegh into his own home and never let him out. Even when he died, they buried him inside his own home. The king ruled like a tyrant for the next 25 years, passing laws the people didn't want. If anyone spoke out against him, his secret police, called Savak, would either lock them away or simply make them disappear. Savak had been trained by a man named General Schwarzkopf of Allegheny. Finally, in 1979, our nation rose up and declared that we would no longer be ruled by our corrupt king. We chose our own leaders, people who had risked everything to speak out against the king and his abuses. Other countries near us were jealous, and one, a country called Mesopotamia, attacked us without reason, or at least without any better reason than they wanted to steal our naft. Most of the weapons they used in the war against us were given to them by our old enemies, Albion and especially Allegheny, though they themselves created the worst weapons of all. poisonous chemicals. They would rain down on villages whose only crime was to be in their army's way. The war dragged on for 8 long years. But in the end, we successfully defended our home. Fereydun is one of the world's most ancient nations. We are a proud, strong people, and we will walk into the future remembering the lessons the past has taught us. So, if we were doing this in person, I would now do question and answer where I stayed in character as the person telling the story, Darius, but that's a bit difficult to do over YouTube, so we're going to have to move on to the next part of this assignment here. Throughout the story, if you were watching the text crawl on the right side of the screen, you may have noticed there were a bunch of words that were underlined. This exercise is designed to get you thinking about point of view. The story that was told. Now, I made up the main character. Darius is not a real person. On the other hand, all of the historical facts he talked about were very real and very true. But at the same time, Darius was telling this story from a very specific point of view. The words that were underlined, that was me substituting the actual names of the countries involved and another word or two for, basically some made up words because I wanted you to react to this story without knowing which countries were actually involved. So I'm about to tell you what the underlying country names really were. And as I do, I want you to think about if knowing this changes your reaction to the story. First up, Fereydun, the country the story set in, that's the country of Iran. It's also in olden times known as Persia. If you ever hear that anything is Persian, that means it comes from Iran. And this whole story was about that country. Naft, the mineral that was dug out of the ground, that's oil. As you probably know, oil is pretty valuable for making lots of stuff, especially gasoline and other types of fuel. Albion. This was the country that discovered the oil and then began exploiting Iran. This was the country of Britain or the United Kingdom. Allegheny, Britain's ally, the country that helped Britain and sent a bunch of spies into Iran to basically make sure that Britain and the United States could keep control of the oil. Well, that was us. Operation Ajax is probably not on the list of the great American moments, but it's still a real moment. And Mesopotamia, the nearby neighboring country that was jealous of how much oil Iran had, that started a terrible war and used illegal chemical weapons, that was Iraq. And Iraq was fighting that war using a lot of weapons that they had originally gotten from Britain and the United States. So, I hope you enjoyed that. I have one more story coming your way in just a little bit. That one will be called Manucher's story. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy.